खुशी की बात है कि आज हमारे दरमियान प्रोफेसर मैत्री में मौजूद हैं। मैम का ताल्लुक हिंदुस्तान की मशहूर यूनिवर्सिटी JNU से है और इस वक्त मैम इंडियन सोशियोलॉजिकल सोसाइटी की प्रेसिडेंट भी हैं। आज हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं इस हॉल में हेड डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ सोशियोलॉजी डॉक्टर जियाउद्दीन सर और दीगर फैकल्टी मेंबर डॉक्टर प्रोफेसर विवेकानंद नायक सर, डॉक्टर सईद सर, डॉक्टर हिलाल और डॉक्टर एहतशाम सर। मैं आप तमाम पार्टिसिपेंट्स का बेहद मशकूर हूँ जो जिन्होंने मुझे ऑनलाइन ज्वाइन किया है, जो इस हॉल में मौजूद हैं। सबसे पहले मैं वेलकम एड्रेस के लिए डॉक्टर हेड डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ सोशियोलॉजी डॉक्टर जियाउद्दीन सर से गुजारिश करता हूँ कि वो वेलकम एड्रेस पेश करें।
Thank you, Faisal. Thank you, Faisal. This is indeed an honor to have somebody like Professor Maitrayee Chaudhuri, who is representing the Indian Sociological Society, one of the most vibrant society, one of the most active and dynamic subject association of the country. So I'm happy that on the behalf of the Department of Sociology, Professor Maitrayee Chaudhuri has agreed to deliver this talk, and that to Sociology Department first monthly lecture series. This is one of the innovative initiative by the research colloquium of the department, which is basically run by the research scholars of the Department of Sociology, Maulana Azad National Urdu University. I welcome Professor Maitrayee Chaudhuri. Ma'am, you have spent almost 4 decades of teaching in Jawaharlal Nehru, one of the prestigious university of the country that represents social sciences most critically and contributing into the nation building process. We also have lot number of faculty who are joining online from across the country. I'm very happy to see that this initiative has brought almost 300 registrations who registered to participate in this talk, and then the participant will be joining, as this program was planned to be scheduled live on YouTube channel Scholars Space, so that our friends can join from across the country and also see the live stream on the YouTube channel. This is indeed a collective initiative of the research students, and I'm very happy to see all of my colleagues, Dr. Vivekanand Naik, Dr. Saeed Meo, Dr. Ehtisham Akhtar, and Dr. Hilal, Professor P.H. Mohammed, who is on leave, sabbatical leave these days. All of us have been trying to do something innovative so that our students can benefit. हमारे स्टूडेंट्स नंबर में बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं होते हैं जो बड़ी यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में होते हैं, लेकिन उनकी क्वालिटी बहुत ही इफेक्टिव है. They work hard, they do a lot of innovative works. So I'm happy that our students from undergraduate courses, masters, and all research scholars from PhD, different batches, all of them are sitting in this hall. And ma'am, you will be happy to see that we thought that for us, it could be an offline event. So all of us are here offline. Due to certain constraint, we could not have you here. But we thought, let us experiment and begin with somebody who is heading the Indian Sociological Society. And you have been very, very proactive to encourage young sociologists, young students. And that is the reason that you agreed for us as well. And located in the southern states of Telangana, Hyderabad is also one of the very active city where academia is doing a lot of work. Maulana Azad National Urdu University is a new university, ma'am. This was established in just 1998. So we have almost traveled just 26 years of life. And we rank almost 100 plus in NIRF ranking. We do have A plus accreditations consequently in the last couple of assessment. All that makes that we are also into the process of making ourselves visible in social sciences. And by having people who have contributed a lot in Indian sociology and what is really going on, what is really into the Indian subject research and teaching. That could be discussed only when we have who have vast experience of teaching and learning. The ambassadors of Professor Maitrayee are not only located in India, but they are across the world. So I'm sure, in fact, many of the senior teachers were calling and messaging last evening that please share the link so that we can hear what is really happening in Indian sociology. So this is an apt right time that we are here to understand the complexities of human societies that requires an in-depth analysis of their various components. I'm sure I would request also on your participant to please mute yourselves. Therefore, it is very important that studying sociology will prepare us for what? For the challenges we face in the life world. It will also expose us to the opportunities and adversities, enabling all social scientists, all research scholars, and young minds to find new ways to study those challenges and come out with very, very pragmatic solutions. And we have seen that worldwide, this is sociologists largely who have contributed a lot into the building of the society, a very good and inclusive society. This discipline is not only very vibrant discipline in 21st century. I'm sure this discipline is going to shape the mind and future of the Indian society. And by having very active participation of young students like sitting here in this hall at Maulana Azad National Urdu University and those who have joined from the countryside, I'm sure today's deliberation will make us meaningful into the domain of Indian sociology and make this subject more useful by our own contributions in reading and writings. Ma'am, thank you so much again that you agreed on just one call and you said that we will have this talk. This is indeed an honor. The Vice Chancellor of the university, Professor Ziyauddin Hassan, who has also been 4 decades in Jawaharlal Nehru University, was very happy to hear that you are delivering this talk. The Registrar, Professor Istiaq Ahmed, who is also a professor of JNU from School of Languages and established scholar. He was also happy to see that such lectures are being organized by the Department of Sociology. Our Dean School, Professor Farida Siddiqui, could not join. She had an urgent meeting, but she has sent her greetings that this program should be successful. And I'm sure this is largely for all of us who are slightly younger than all those teachers who are heading the universities. I'm sure we will be benefiting and we look forward for much more meaningful association in future offline. And we'll be happy to see you in Hyderabad campus sometime in future soon. Thank you once again. I request Faisal to assist.
थैंक यू सर। अब बारी है हमारे जो आज के मेहमान हैं उनको सुनने की। So before we proceed, I request Dr. Said sir to present a brief bio of our today's speaker.
Well, very good morning and very warm greetings from Hyderabad, ma'am.
Thank you.
Warm greetings to all the participants who have joined from across the country, in online mode. Well, much has been said and much has been known about Professor Maitrayee, a renowned sociologist of our time. But let me say a few words about her in terms of as a ritual in introducing her. Our friends, Professor Maitrayee Chaudhuri is one of the most renowned sociologists of our time, with unwavering dedication to the discipline and a very accomplished scholarship. Professor Maitrayee is currently the president of Indian Sociological Society, as we have briefly discussed this a little bit earlier. Professor Maitrayee is retired from the Center for Study of Social Systems Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, after over 3 decades of her dedicated teaching and path-breaking research work in various domains of her research interest. Professor Maitrayee has served as subject expert, faculty, and advisor, and also collaborated with various prestigious institutes, both in India and abroad. She has served as faculty in Duke University, University of Sussex, and University of East London. She was director of Women's Studies Program. She was Dart visiting professor at Albert Ludwig University, Freiburg in Germany, and a visiting fellow at Harvard University, as well as the University of Massachusetts, USA. Friends, Professor Maitrayee has been profoundly engaged with the question of relevance of sociology in India in terms of its institutional practices and intellectual traditions. She has written a sort of, personal reflections or ethnology of the center of social systems. I mean, in terms of her article. Her early work was focused on gender studies, globalization, and of course, teaching and learning practices. She has made significant contributions in institutionalizing the gender studies in India. Since the early 1990s, she has been looking at the changing nature of public discourse in the context of both neoliberalism and the rise of majoritarianism in India. She has profoundly written and spoken on the discourse of academia and social sciences in terms of examining teaching practices, theorizing use of concepts and prospects of sociology. Well, besides writing and editing numerous critical texts like Sociology in India, Intellectual and Institutional Practices, The Practice of Sociology, that's another book which is published from Orient Black Swan. And there is another interesting article, Doing Sociology, Some Pertinent Questions, which is published in Sociological Bulletin. I'm citing these references, only very few ones, which are very much related to today's lecture. Well, she has also, in her attempts to understand sociology or examining the sociological practices or institutional aspects of sociology, she has co-founded Doing Sociology, a unique virtual platform to cultivate the sociological consciousness and to understand the discipline of sociology, its roots in contemporary context. Well, with these words, I welcome you, ma'am, once again. We at the Department of Sociology here at MANUU, Hyderabad, are very delighted to host your lecture on such a pertinent theme of understanding relevance of sociology in India today. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm really honored to deliver the first Socio Monthly Lecture Series of the Department of Sociology, Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad. My very special thanks to Dr. K.M. Ziyauddin for inviting me. I have not visited MANUU yet, but I have built new friends in the last few months. I like the tangible vibrancy of the place felt even from afar. When I was listening to the introductory comments made by Dr. Farooqi, Zia, and all the other members, I was very struck by certain terms that you used. One, student initiative. One, collective. One, innovative. One, vibrant. I cherish all the 4 terms: collective, innovative, vibrant, and student-led. We live in very hierarchical times. We live in very unequal times. And one request I have to all of you, that when you invite a speaker, don't spend too much time talking about him or her. Go straight to the talk so that the students and young scholars have more time to interact. We have to create a new culture of camaraderie, collegiality, and a certain sense of fraternity amongst us. I am delighted that at this point of time, when young scholars like the scholars at MANUU and across the country, that we are trying to make the discipline of sociology, which should have been and always has been, but doubly so today, at the helm of the Indian Sociological Society. We are a professional body. Academics should be the core thrust of this institution. We are not an institution like any other. So it is the discipline which matters. And as you correctly mentioned, it is very important to go to the core issue. Why do we do sociology at all? And what is its relevance in India? I was, in fact, initially thought that it is relevance of sociology, and I was quite excited. And then I saw India, and I said, okay, so I have to bring in the question of India, because some of the challenges to sociology are global. We live in a very connected world. Many of the issues that we talked about, whether it is neoliberalism, majoritarianism, violence, ethnic, conflict, genocide, various war, climate warming, they are global phenomena. And in a certain sense, there has been a certain downgrading of sociology. So some of the challenges we face today are global, but some of it is specific to India. I would like to address both. But before I begin, I want to make some preliminary observation. When we have to explain why are sociologists relevant, I was wondering, do doctors have to explain why they are relevant? Administrators, IS officers, police officers, army, sanitation workers, do closer in the discipline, philosophers have to explain why do they do or how are they relevant? Do historians do that or economists? And if they don't, then we must ask why? Why do sociologists have to always explain why we are relevant? And the first possible response as to why and not them could be the obviousness of their relevance. Doctors have to heal, they have to cure patients, they have to save lives. If somebody is fractured, they have to operate. Army has to keep the security of the country in place, the police, law and order as the administrators. In our case, particularly sociology, our relevance is not so directly obvious. And that indirect or the kind of cognitive invisibility of our relevance requires us to revisit the nature of our discipline. It is important, therefore, that I will speak for a little bit that what is sociology? Because if we don't understand what sociology is, we won't understand how is it relevant either in India or globally. Coming to the second question, that why don't philosophers discuss this issue, or historians or economists? There are two ways of answering them. One way is more empirical in the Indian context, and Satish Deshpande has written extensively on it, that the history has been at the core of our debates in our country. Every time there's a new NCERT textbook, there are questions of what is getting deleted and what is being cut. Historians have been very linked with the question of the modern identity of the nation. This is not true just of India. This is true of our neighbors in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. It is true about England or America. History is a very, very core site for the manner in which the nation gets represented. So history has been at the core of all debates. Economists, because when we became independent, or even before we became independent, we had a national planning committee constituted by the Indian National Congress in 1938, headed by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, which was talking about how we could develop once we become independent. And economists forthwith have been very central. We had the planning commission, the idea of the state getting involved. Where do sociologists come in all this? Philosophers perhaps felt that theirs was a high-end order and they did not get engaged very directly with questions of relevance of society, except perhaps much later political philosophers discussing questions of secularism, discussing questions of the constitution. Now, as I said, the problem if discussing why sociology is relevant here or elsewhere is because there is a certain ambiguity of what we are. And I want to draw from the lessons we learned from the pandemic, lessons from the COVID. Time passes very rapidly in contemporary times. During the pandemic, we thought we will never forget the pandemic, that it was omnipresent, that it was this dark times where we will never emerge. And the roads were empty and the skies were blue and people were dying. But very soon, we seem to have forgotten the COVID. But as sociologists, to study the contemporary is very important to go back what has happened in the immediate contemporary and see, can we find answers as to why we are relevant, why sociology is relevant? And we have to emphasize this more because I remember during the pandemic, everybody was talking about frontline workers, about the sacrifice of sanitation workers, health workers, providers of essential services. And we felt that doesn't mean that social science is irrelevant. Do we not understand the question of relevance a little differently? And perhaps we have to understand that sociology emerged at a moment of crisis. Just like the COVID was a crisis, sociology many decades ago, maybe 200 years ago, emerged at a moment of crisis, rapid development, industrialization, capitalism, colonialism, new ideas of scientific methods, questions of reason, understanding the social as humanly constituted and therefore humanly solved. Our classical thinkers were concerned with experiences that human beings suffered, alienation, estrangement, anomie. This was very central to what we were going to discuss. Sociology is used to the question of crisis. It therefore becomes important to look at this question of crisis. Let me go back and quote from Frank Snowden. Frank Snowden is not a sociologist. His name became very popular during the pandemic because he was a medical historian and epidemiologist. And he made this very interesting observation talking about epidemic diseases like the pandemic, like cholera, like typhoid, like tuberculosis. Epidemic diseases, he writes, are not random events. They afflict societies without warning. On the contrary, every society produces its own specific vulnerabilities. To study why and when epidemic diseases will inflict us, we have to understand society structure, its standard of living, and its political priorities. It is something that we have to do very carefully because we have to understand that even diseases, morbidity, mortality, global warming, violence against women, various kinds of things are not random events. And I will be, telling you that I have to sort of go back. Just can you excuse me for a minute? There is a call. I'll just sort of quickly get back to you. Yes. So the basic point I'm trying to explain to you is when people say, how is sociology relevant? Zia mentioned about my stint in JNU. And when we were in JNU, we were often told, aap log to ivory tower mein hai, aap logo ko kya pata, logo ke beech kya ho raha. Now, the idea of the fact that academics are not social workers. Academics are not sanitation workers. Academics are not doctors. Academics are not nurses. Academics are not administrators. But they create and disseminate knowledge which administrators can use, sanitation workers can use, policymakers can use. Sociology is a mode of understanding. Sociology is not the practice. And during the pandemic, very often we saw that people started talking about a new normal. And even at that point, the question was arise, is it a new normal? Or is what is happening during the pandemic an acceleration of certain trends in society, of certain inequalities in society. Let us take certain kinds of social problems which we encounter globally and in our country. We have racism globally. We have religious fanaticism globally and in our nation. We have class and caste inequality in our country. Each of these played out during the pandemic. Inequality, ethnic violence, communalism, racism, class inequalities, caste segregation are all subjects of sociology. How did they play out during the pandemic? If you remember, there were attacks on people in the global north, on people who looked from China or Southeast Asian, saying that corona is something which has come from China, so Chinese people should be attacked. In our country, people from the Northeast, even in Delhi, were attacked, saying these are the people responsible. We then shifted ground and said, this is something which has come from certain minorities, and therefore they should be attacked. So you could see trends which are patterns in society get aggravated in a crisis. We also noticed deep structural inequalities playing out. You will recall that in our country, a lot of young girls, children, get married because their parents are not sure about protecting their girl children. During the pandemic, UNICEF, UNESCO findings show that the age of girls getting married dropped further. Rate of girls being taken out of educational institutions dropped further. Can this be understood by doctors, nurses, health professionals, policymakers without a sociological understanding of society? We have to understand during the COVID-19 that it has affected every aspect of our institutional and individual lives. Governments, economies, families were decimated. You remember urban migrants walking thousands of miles to go back to their villages. They were invisible to the middle class eye. Did we know that so many people worked in the unorganized sector as plumbers, as delivery workers, as carpenters, as electricians, as cooks, as domestic workers who lived in our slums and were seen as a site of the disease? And you would recall that actually the disease came from abroad, the first Italian tourists. And as the people who were dispossessed or not privileged said, ये तो बड़े लोगों की बीमारी है, ये तो हमारे की बीमारी नहीं है. So questions of inequality were fundamentally visible during the pandemic. So when somebody says, how have you solved this problem? इतने सालों से आप gender पढ़ा रहे, तो अब dowry तो solve नहीं कर पाया. The question is, they want us to solve it as though it's a magic formula. We are not the people who are going to implement the policy. We are the people who will inform policy making. Please do not mistake the nature of the discipline. Sometimes in our effort to sound relevant, we will say, हमने तो ये गाँव adopt कर लिया और इस गाँव में जितनी समस्या है, we are going to address it. That is not our task. If you look at Peter Berger, and I urge all young students, young scholars in undergraduate program to study Invitation to Sociology, Peter Berger. And I would also ask the faculty in MANUU to see if you could translate the text. Translate the text because बहुत मजेदार text है and it brings sociology alive. And it begins with the idea कि what people mistake the nature of sociology. तो उनको कहना था कि when people met him, Peter Berger, तो उनको कहना था, you must be solving problems. You must be a social worker. And उनका कहना था, social worker is a practice. Sociology is a mode of understanding. Sociology can feed into social work, but sociology is not social work. We have to understand that distinction. It becomes extremely important to understand that distinction. We have to understand, जब ये पूरा buzzword चला during the pandemic, new normal आ गया, old normal खत्म हो गया, वो गलत और hasty idea था. The old normal where we talk in sociology about the organizing principles of society, जैसे class है, caste, gender, tribe, race, religion, ethnicity, remained. The pandemic and the crisis actually accelerated the question. During the pandemic, people said, look, ab to sab log barabar hai. Are we all in the same boat? And then social scientists, sociologists says, are we really on the same boat? And the answer was, we are all in the same crisis. We are all in the same storm, but not in the same boat. You will remember who were the people who could isolate. Kinke paas wo ghar the jo wahan pe they could isolate themselves. They could work from home, homeschool their children, stockpile our shelf, access healthcare financially, put your life back only if you had resources. So we were in the same storm, but not in the same boat. ये sociological relevance है. So जो आप लोग sociological relevance सोचते हैं, ये बहुत बड़ी बात है और ध्यान से समझना चाहिए that we cannot be poor doctors, nurses, social workers, policy makers, administrators, policemen, or even religious workers. We are sociologists. We have certain skills and we have certain understanding. The skills and understanding go together. The skills are not enough. So people will say कि जल्दी जल्दी आप कुछ statistics सीख लो, or you learn a certain kind of new, download a particular computer program for quick analysis. वो ज़रूरी है. Qualitative method, quantitative method ज़रूरी है. But without sociological understanding, उसका कुछ मतलब ही नहीं बनता. Because statisticians will always be better than us as statisticians. Literature people will much be better in describing reality. Where is our khasiyat? Where is our specificity? Where is our strength? Our strength lies in a combination of theory, method, fieldwork, and an ability to connect. To connect the family to the economy to culture, the culture to religion, religion to language, and see everything in intersection. That is the sociological understanding. You may be wondering why I'm entering this discussion about relevance in this roundabout fashion. I, in fact, had a reputation in my department कि गोल गोल बात करनी है, you know. Now, according to me as a teacher, ये जो गोल वाले बात है, वो ज़रूरी है. Why? Because अगर आप सीधे तौर में bullet point में मैं बताऊं कि देखिए आप relevant इसलिए है कि आप डाउरी सॉल्व कर सकते हैं, रेलेवेंट आप इसलिए है कि जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी सॉल्व कर सकते हैं, रेलेवेंट आप इसलिए है कि कम्युनल एमिटी बढ़ा सकते हैं, then I am not going into the complex nature of these issues. My strength is, why does gender inequality exist and gets perpetuated? My questions are, why is the state changing? What is the nature of the state? Are we moving away from the constitutional vision? As a sociologist, I must understand the constitution. I must understand why a caring state is better for a good society rather than a police state. I have to understand concepts like the state, concepts like the market. I have to study text. कई लोग कहते हैं कि theory पढ़ के क्या फायदा है? Theory बहुत ज़रूरी है because sociology is not common sense knowledge. आप लोग जब पढ़ाते हैं या जब पढ़ते हैं, very often in our syllabus we begin with the distinction between common sense knowledge and sociological knowledge. और ये कभी-कभी बहुत routine तरीके से हम पढ़ते हैं. Routine तरीके people mentioned by Sociology in India and Practice of Sociology. There is another book called Doing Theory, which is co-edited. I'd be happy if you all have a look at that. Because I'm trying to make the distinction between common sense and sociology and sociological knowledge and argue that, look, for this to understand, we have to make a distinction between what common sense is and what sociological knowledge is. Sociological knowledge begins from validation, empirically validated. conceptually informed. It is not abstracted empiricism. जैसे C. Wright Mills abstracted empiricism को criticize किया. उनका कहना था सिर्फ डेटा कलेक्ट करने से नहीं चलेगा. डेटा को आप कैसे fit करेंगे? And there is an example I keep repeating, but when you are teacher for so long, that danger of repeating examples will happen. सिर्फ data minus theory का कोई मतलब नहीं है. And I'll give you a small example. Since I've worked for very long on gender, 1975 आप लोग को पता होगा towards equality report India में आया. UN में International Women's Year, International Women's Decade announced हुआ. Or people started discussing gender issues, and one of the issues that came up was कि census. और आप लोगों को पता census में सिर्फ numbers है और तो कुछ होता नहीं है. And census में women workers or women in production was so little. And people were asking कि ये क्यों है? And people said क्या लोग ध्यान से count नहीं करता? Problem was not so much in counting. Interestingly, the problem was theoretical. The problem was conceptual. मतलब people were defining work in a particular way. Work was the kind of work I did as a professor. I had a job, I had a contract, I have retirement benefits, I had a fixed salary, I got DA, I hope to get a pension. This is organized sector governed by certain statutes and rules. Whereas in the unorganized sector, where most women work as BD workers, home-based workers, maybe carrying a stone on their head, that work was not counted. Now, this is not, therefore, a matter of statistics. This is a matter of concept, theory. आप work को कैसे define करता? आप work को कैसे conceptualize करता? आपको कि ये कैसे? So the idea of theory being redundant is something young people should be asked not to entertain. It is our fault कि कई लोग theory को इतनी complicated तरीके से पेश करते हैं, इतने लोग डर जाते हैं और लोग को कहना है कि ये तो बहुत हाई-फाई चीज है. बिल्कुल हाई-फाई नहीं है. अब work के ज़्यादा क्या चीज इतने, it can be so elementary and so close to our heart. How do we define work is a theoretical question. When we as ordinary people in our everyday common sense life work, we have values as citizen, private person, member of a religious group, adherent of association of people. हमारे कुछ अपना personal values हैं. I may be partial to a particular community, I may be less partial, I may have biases. But when I'm a sociologist, I have only one value, scientific integrity. Scientific integrity. वो बहुत ज़रूरी है. You must listen to people. You must hear everybody. You must record. I no longer live in the university, which was a sort of a kind of island. I now live in a regular DDA colony in Delhi, and we have a RWA. बहुत अजीब सा बात वो share करते हैं. I can block it off. But as a sociologist, I'm interested. If I don't know what people think, if I don't know what people are thinking, believing, how can I be a sociologist? If I do not know what are their prejudices, how can I be a sociologist? Good data matters. Why are we relevant? Because good data matters. And I want to quote from Peter Berger. उनका बहुत एक बढ़िया सा कहानी है कि कहीं भी military conflict है तो you need intelligence. Spy बहुत जरूरी है कि spy will tell you कि कहाँ पे क्या हो रहा और state को सुनना चाहिए. Now, unfortunately, in Bangladesh, सुने नहीं. But if you hear good intelligence, is always information free of biases. And I quote from Peter Berger, if a spy does his or her reporting in terms of ideology and ambition of superiors, reports are useless, not only to the enemy, if the latter should capture them, also to the spy's own side. Sociologist's job is to be a spy with good data. Job is to report as accurately as she or he can about a certain social terrain. हमें समझना है. अगर हम समझ नहीं पाता, there is a big problem. The irrelevance of sociology in our country is so much today because we have routinized it. Very often we say common sense things as a sociologist. We will express our own prejudices as sociologists. And very often the state expects us to be cheerleaders. हमारे काम cheerleaders बनने का नहीं है. For a good society, a democratic society, our task is to get good data, analyze and critique. कई लोग को कहना है कि critique बहुत negative है. क्रिटिक बहुत नेगेटिव है, हमें बढ़िया सा कहानी बताना चाहिए, हमें पॉजिटिव कहानी बताना चाहिए. हमारे काम प्रोपोगेंडा नहीं है, हमारे काम जो चीज सही है वो भी बताना, जो चीज गलत है वो भी बताना. और वो जब हम बता रहेंगे वो डेटा बेस्ड होना चाहिए. इट हैज टू बी बेस्ड ऑन कॉन्क्रीट डेटा व्हिच इज इन्फॉर्म्ड बाय थ्योरी. Remember, neither qualitative data nor quantitative data is equal to sociology. कई बार sociological interview में लोग कहेंगे आपका sample size क्या है और किस तरीके का sample है. That is important, but that is just a tool. It does not make sociology. Statistical data become sociology only when they are sociologically interpreted, put within a theoretical frame of reference that is sociological. Simple counting or even correlating does not count in not sociology. आप पुराने कई लोग कहते हैं कि पुराने classical thinkers पढ़ाना नहीं चाहिए, irrelevant है. आप Durkheim के rules of sociological method पे चले जाइए. Or his suicide. What is he arguing in suicide? In suicide, he was looking at the death or the rate of suicide through hospital data, the coronaries data, and found कि Protestants में ज़्यादा है suicide cases, Catholics में कम है. अगर सिर्फ काउंटिंग है तो दो टेबल्स आप लगा दीजिए और लिख दीजिए कि कैथोलिक्स में कम है, प्रोटेस्टेंट्स के ज़्यादा है, और कुछ बार चार्ट, कुछ पाई चार्ट्स लगा दीजिए. लोग कहेंगे बहुत बढ़िया काम है. But that's not enough. He wanted to understand क्यों है. Sociology is the question क्यों है, and the क्यों he found in the structure of the Catholics and the structure of the Protestants. उनका कहना था the communities which are closely integrated, where the individual is not so cut off from the larger community, the rates are less. वहाँ पे you can share. जैसे third people say global south में कम है. कई लोग, we had this tragic case of a German student who came to JNU for 6 months and went back. And she had a certain kind of tendency to suicidal thoughts. But यहाँ पे सारे दिन she would be among her friends, always talking, sharing, discussing, laughing, crying. She was in a community. When she went back and she felt so alone, so disconnected, unfortunately, she did kill herself. So it is the nature of the society which has to be understood. Just counting is not important. Just correlating is not important. Just writing tables is not important. Those are just tools. It is the scientific canons of procedures which must be that, okay, I have studied maybe Munirka village and I've seen it as an urban village. I have to tell in my writing what are the data, what are the techniques, what are the methods, so that somebody else 10 years later wants to study Munirka village, they will understand where that tools of evidence came from. What are the rules of evidence, certain rules of evidence? Aapne kaise imagine kya? Was it the certain village, the actual counting? We also have to be very guarded against a tendency to eulogize one kind of method against another. कई लोग को कहना है सिर्फ quantitative ही matter करता है. कई लोग का आजकल है कि सिर्फ stories or narratives or qualitative ही matter करता है. No, both matter. In fact, the best anthropological ethnographic work of the classical anthropologists began with census. They would study a village and they would do a census of all the villages. So you get an idea of the village structure. Social structure, बिना आप कुछ qualitative data नहीं कर सकते. You have to understand the nature of society, the importance of methods. We have to understand why methods are important for us. As sociologists try to develop their scientific rules of evidence, they are compelled to reflect upon methodological problems. We have to also understand theoretically what is the social. We have to read Max Weber, who says that people have orient their actions towards one another. Agar kai log, people will ask, I used to ask in my class, how many of you believe in dowry? Sab log kehte the ki we don't believe in dowry. Same person in their room may boast ki hame to ye offer mil gaya. That lie is also data, unless we understand how people orient their action towards one another. Students के साथ वो boast कर रहा क्योंकि उनको IS मिल गया, उनको dowry मिलना था. Teacher के साथ उनको लगा women teacher है, शायद feminist है, dowry को खिलाफ बोलना चाहिए, वो बोला. It helps us. Don't think of it as a lie. Think of it as presentation of the self. Sociological perspective is also relevant because it is different from the legal. हमें ये भी समझना है कि criminal कैसे crime को देखता, not just what the policeman does. It is equally important to see how the criminal laws. And finally, sociology is linked to democracy. Sociology questions everything. Total respectability of thought, Peter Burgess says, invariably means the death of sociology. कभी भी आप totalitarian states में बढ़िया sociology नहीं मिलेंगे. कभी भी आप कोई fundamentalist state का अंदर बढ़िया sociology नहीं होगा. Nazi Germany में नहीं हुआ. The best sociologists ran away from Frankfurt School to work because it was not possible for them to work. Totalitarians, the Soviet Union did not produce great sociologists, but prior to that, before the pre-revolution, you had the most brilliant treaties in the Soviet Union, in Russia. Sociological potential is always seen as a threat to the minds of policemen and other kinds of public order. It always tends to relativize the claim to absolute rightness. Very difficult for a sociologist to say कि हम ही सही है. Only my ethnic group is right, only my religion is right, only my language is right, only my country is right. Relativizing and comparative study is central to the sociological perspective. जब भी कोई कुछ कहे, आपको पूछना है, who says, why, what, how, what, why is central to the sociologist. Sociologist is always wanting to debunk and asking methodological questions, why is it taking place? It's important, therefore, to constantly emphasize that the specificity of sociology and its relevance lie in its nature. Let us not try to say कि हमें थोड़ा सा member बना दीजिए committee में, हम relevant बन जाएगा. आप तभी relevant बन जाएगा if you have something to offer. If there is a technological project, आप कह सकते हैं कि ये technology will not work. Digital world will not work if you have digital inequality. And what is that nature of inequality? Those are the kinds of questions you have to ask in order to be relevant. Thank you very much. I may have short my time, but thank you once again.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for talking to us today on relevance of sociology in today India. And I'm very sure this conversation will be very helpful for our audience, particularly for the students of sociology. Thank you, ma'am, once again for this engaging conversation. Thank you, ma'am. Now the session is, the host is open for question and answer. So, please. Both online and offline. Please unmute yourself. Audience. Yes, ma'am. Professor Anujan. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Professor Chaudhuri, for really a fantastic lecture. Such complex points given in such easy and understandable language, which I'm sure everyone is appreciating. I would love to have record of this lecture in case you all can give me, Mr. Faruqi. Uh, I'm facing a dilemma. As you know, I belong to Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and we are seeing that not only in India, across the world, sociology, social sciences, any subject which is critical in perspective, which asks questions, is not being promoted. No, no funding is being given. We are not encouraged to publish papers. In fact, our papers are not getting published also if gets very critical. And the teachers of sociology are not getting reappointed. Scholarships of sociology across the world is dying. In this kind of, and I can understand the reason. The reason is shift from welfare state to neoliberal state. Reason is in market economy, capitalist oriented. But then what do we do to survive? Of course, we can always start doing our own personal research, which I'm doing, in fact. But how do we survive? How do we get young, promising people to get involved with such a challenging subject? And the subject is very challenging, and people are not understanding it enough. Thank you.
Do you want me to reply immediately or?
No, you can give me later also. This is a personal query.
No, I completely agree. I'm so happy to see you, Professor Ranu Jain. I think we met long ago in NCRT, many,
Yes,
many years ago.
yes.
Yeah. And, to be very honest, at a personal level, a lot of people were asking me why suddenly I decided to, contest for the Indian Sociological Society. And it actually came from that sense of feeling completely helpless.
Yes.
That my students were not getting jobs, they were getting terminated, absurd things were being published as good quality thing, people who ought not to be promoted. So there was this sense that we had a reasonable good time in our lives in the university system. We were protected, and I felt maybe we have to create alternative sites, because we can't wish away the present regime or the neoliberal world, or we can't wish it away. So one is, of course, scholarship, but one is that's why so struck by Zia's question of collective, student initiated, vibrant academic. We have to have multiple social forces and sites for deliberation, because I can't see anything changing dramatically radical in the near future. We can't go back. Let's go back to post-World War II. Nothing matters anymore. The international institutions don't matter anymore. Wars are going on. Nothing is mattering anymore. Condemnations don't matter anymore. We are in a situation, there is no accountability. Democracy is not a good word any longer. In fact, for the conference, and I hope all of you come for the conference, which will be held at Munjal University, 22nd to 24th December, we have called the term, it will come out in a day or two, Sociology, Democracy and Development. I want to go back to its basics, so wherever we have an opportunity, and it's not going to be easy, it's going to be very, very difficult, but we can't give up. We simply can't give up, we have to work. And I'm so happy young people are taking the initiatives.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Nitink Mishra, please go ahead. और इस बीच में हमारे स्टूडेंट जो हॉल में बैठे हैं, आप यहाँ सवाल कर सकते हैं.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for this insightful talk that you have just given. It is really very nice to listen to you after a long time. I have sort of one query which is very personal, which is sort of personal in the sense of it directly relates to my own ongoing PhD work. I am trying to study agrarian society in transition, and that is again in the context of urbanization, which is reaching out to the rural areas. My field site is in Delhi NCR, and as you suggested, sociologists are not basically activists. They are not social workers and all. But while studying this social transition in that sense, I sort of come across um, several issues where quantitative data may not suffice the requirement, which is not readily available in that sense. And qualitative data has this drawback of subjectivity, which comes along with it. So, if you can help me sort this out in a way that I can move
You
more
know, India,
confidently.
Indian sociology, as you know, we have some fantastic scholars on rural urban, and they will probably be better. I want to share because I wear my hat as the president now 24/7. We have a new, not a new, but a recast research committee on rural and agrarian studies, headed by Professor Debol Singhorai. It's the RC15. And we have Professor Purendra Prasad, Professor Jyotka. Everybody is going to be involved in that, you know. So it becomes extremely important, that you all become a member of it. We also had a wonderful lecture in the ISS by Professor Purendra Prasad precisely on the rural agrarian transition, and the kind of challenges you face in data. So I would really request you, your friends, to join the research committee on 15. We are hoping to have some very serious discussion on this because it's happening across the country. And it's also linked to questions of, various kinds of developmental crisis, environmental hazards, apart from inequalities which are happening. So I would like you to email me to my president's email so I can connect you with this group. It's very important. That's the only thing I can do. I have realized in my 7 or 8 months, connect people working in the area with others and do serious scholarship. So this is, we have now focusing heavily on the research committee 15, rural and agrarian. And the co-conveners are 2 very young scholars. So please go to the website and check. Okay. Yeah. Because they will be much better, and come for the conference. Yeah.
Okay. We take 2 questions at once, ma'am, so that it will be easier to answer. We'll take one here. Osama is PhD research student. He'll be asking one, and then we'll go to Ankita Pathak.
Thank you, ma'am. Given the importance of data collection of both qualitative and quantitative data, could you please elaborate on how the process of theorization integrate these data? And हम बहुत कुछ पढ़ते हैं या theories पढ़ते हैं, लेकिन उसको हम अपने research के plan में या research के process में किस तरीके से उसको integrate कर पाए?
Gee, there is a problem. I won't be able to explain too much now. कि कई लोगों का ये idea है कि theorization का मतलब है generalization. कि आप डेटा कलेक्ट कर लीजिए और फिर आप थियोराइज कीजिए. वो तो ठीक है, मर्टन का तरह मिडिल रेंज थ्योरी वो पॉसिबल है. बट जो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट बात है कि समाज को स्टडी करने को पहले एक थ्योरेटिकल अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द सोसाइटी इज नेसेसरी. मतलब थ्योरी इज नॉट समथिंग की आफ्टर थॉट. जब हम स्टूडेंट्स थे तो लोग कहते थे कि हमारे MA के टाइम में कि हम टर्म पेपर तो लिख लिया, अभी थ्योरी कैसे डालें. वो गलत तरीका है. आपको पहले थ्योरी से एंगेज करना पड़ेगा. इसलिए जैसे कई बार हमने बड़ा मैकेनिकली रिव्यू ऑफ स्कॉलरशिप करते हैं, जैसे PhD में करना पड़ता है रिव्यू ऑफ स्टडीज, तो हमें लगता है ये रिचुअल है और ये कर लो. पर रिव्यू ऑफ स्टडीज इसलिए है क्योंकि आप पढ़ पा रहे हैं कि बाकी लोग कैसे स्टडी किया था और उनका कैसे अंडरस्टैंडिंग था उस विलेज को, उस सोसाइटी को समझने का. वहां पे स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन सिस्टम क्या था, लैंड इशू क्या था, दैट बिकम्स वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. सो थ्योरी इज एक्चुअली कोई भी पॉइंट ऑफ रिसर्च में आप प्री थ्योरेटिकल स्टेज में नहीं है, आपके दिमाग में कुछ आइडियाज है ऑलरेडी. सो आप अगर प्रिविलेज बैकग्राउंड से है तो आपके दिमाग में कुछ प्रिविलेज्ड आइडियाज होंगे, जैसे जेंडर के साथ हो सकता है, या क्लास का साथ हो सकता है, या कास्ट का साथ हो सकते हैं. कि जैसे आपको डी नोटिफाइड ट्राइब्स पढ़ना, तो आपका दिमाग में है कि ये तो है ही बदमाश, ये लोग तो क्रिमिनल्स हैं, ठीक है. तो अगर आप उस स्कॉलरशिप पहले ना पढ़े, उन पे जो थ्योरेटिकल आलोचना हुआ, तो वो आपको वो बाद में थ्योराइजेशन हो ही नहीं सकता. तो आप ऐसा मत सोचिए कि पहले फील्ड में चले जाए, फिर डेटा कलेक्ट कर लीजिए और फिर थ्योराइज करें. वो एक अलग लेवल पे आप स्मॉल स्केल प्रोपोजिशंस डाल सकते हैं, पर आपको पहले थोड़ा सा पढ़ना पड़ेगा बेसिक सोशियोलॉजी, नहीं तो थ्योराइजेशन नहीं. ये प्रोसेस है. As I paid a lot of effort writing that introduction with Manish Thakur, doing theory है, Orient Black Swan से निकला. वो introduction जरा पढ़िए कि, और उसमें कई लोग ये empirical और theoretical का relationship पे भी लिखा. I think अमितेश मुखोपाध्याय का भी एक है, theory और empirical क्या connections है. तो वो किताब शायद आपका लाइब्रेरी में भी मिल जाएगा. 2018 का है.
Okay, Dr. Fayaz Ahmed Bhatt, then Salim and Ankita Patra. One by one. First, Fayaz.
May I?
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
It was nice to hear, ma'am, for after a long gap when I have attended ISS conferences. A well thought topic of discussion today, ma'am. Actually, I want to know one thing, that you were talking about that we must first engage ourselves with theory, and then we must connect it with, you can say, with practical reality, how to understand it, and then to, you can say, talk about that or write about that. But I have heard, as I was a student of science first in graduation, then I switched over to sociology in my masters. I have heard about that a concept that is grounded theory, that like Srinivas's approach, that he went to the field first and then developed the theory of Sanskritization. So kindly sort of can say inquiry is it? I just need a sort of answer for that.
Very quick response. It's a very good question. मुझे थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम है द आइडिया कि आप फील्ड में चले जाइए एंड फील्ड सब कुछ बता देंगे. आप बताइए, इफ द फील्ड कुड टेल एवरीथिंग, तो हमें इतने साल क्यों लगा टू डिस्कवर जेंडर? जेंडर तो, यू नो, द फील्ड विल ओनली टेल यू व्हाट यू सी. कुछ चीज इनविजिबल रहता. Because I come from my experience, मुझे बहुत कुछ नहीं आता. And some things will be invisible. Like I did not know when I came to JNU from the Northeast as a Bengali, I did not know कि इतने लोग vegetarian हैं. तो मैंने क्यों में पूछा कि दो क्यों है, तो बोला वेजिटेरियन क्यों, नॉन वेजिटेरियन क्यों. मैंने बोला कि इतने लोग वेजिटेरियन क्यों है, बिकॉज फ्रॉम वेयर आई कम द कॉन्सेप्ट वाज इटसेल्फ नॉट देयर. ओके, तो ये जो है, जो अनलर्निंग है, डीबंकिंग है, ये पढ़ के आ सकता. फील्ड बहुत कुछ बोलेंगे, बट फील्ड को आप एम्प्टी माइंड से नहीं गया. योर माइंड ऑलरेडी हैज आइडियाज. So Professor Srinivas already had ideas about reference group, social mobility, and the structure of dominant castes and societies. फिर वो दिखता है, theories and concepts shed light. Grounded theory is important, but it's a to and fro. आपका ऐसा नहीं कि theory से empirical or empirical से theory. It is simultaneous. It is very, very simultaneous. Maybe we should have a separate discussion on theory.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I got it. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Ankita Patra, please go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Yes. I'm actually in my college. I'm teaching, so I'm privileged to hear Madam Maitrayee.
Yeah, hi.
Am I audible? Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, good morning.
Ma'am, I'm super excited to hear you live. First, second is that I will come to the point, as you said that actually I am, after the NEP has been introduced, now it is getting tougher to teach or discuss sociology to engineering students, to non-sociology background students. That is a recent thing which I faced last week. Our principal and VC, I'm working at ICFI University in Tripura as assistant professor. And they asked me to design a syllabus which should be for the engineering first year, BTech first semester students, second year students, BTech. Then instantly that science and technology, this is not a question, I'm actually sharing it with my fraternity. So then I was asked to design a syllabus for the BTech students, second year. Then I instantly science and technology, the paper on science and technology that crossed my mind. And I wanted to teach that and offer that from liberal arts domain to the engineering students. Then that was somewhere not appreciated by the Board of Studies and the academic council. They state that, you just teach what is family, what is religion, what is society to the engineers, more than science and technology. Then I had to defend myself, stating that, Madam, Sir, that our engineers are now located in a neoliberal democratic modern society where we have a civil society, and their gaze is on us, on the scientific community. So I think it should be taught to them. And then I had a difficult time in making a syllabus for the BTech students. And then ultimately they didn't like it. They said, no, you just teach the traditional things, what we studied in our BTech times in IITs, which is tradition. Sorry? What is that? That is, yes, ma'am. That is what is family, these social basic concepts of society and sociology, then social processes, social institutions. That's all. And so this was a anecdote which I wanted to share in this forum after listening to your, as you know, as you started, like why we have to justify ourselves.
There's a lot of people who teach in IITs and IIMs face this issue. And maybe you could make a kind of network. In fact, in my book, I think Sociology in India, Professor Kushal Dev writes about his experience teaching in IIT Mumbai. Yes. And there have been others who've written, I think Ravinder Kaur has written about it. So it would be...
Yes. Hello? Hello? I can't hear. I can't hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear.
Somebody. Yeah. Anyway, we don't have time now.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Flag off a mail, then we can connect you with that group. Yeah.
We can have 2 quick questions, ma'am, so that we wind up timely. Fazil is here, he is PhD student in the Sociology department in MANUU. And then there is there are 2 online.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for your insightful lecture on the relevance of sociology in India today. Now we are living in the age of technology that has surpassed and replaced human capacity, and the artificial intelligence has affected individual and society as a whole. So, in your opinion, what would be the role of sociology in addressing this pertinent issue, and what should be the stand of sociologists towards that?
Towards technology? Towards technology, is that the question?
Sociology in addressing the issue of artificial intelligence and robotics.
Yeah. I am not very familiar with artificial intelligence, but basically the issue is that, we probably have to go back to certain basics, but there are people who are working on AI, and I would like, but I'm not competent. I sort of have started reading on it, but I'm not competent to answer this, But I feel basic social science will continue to have bearing, even when it comes to questions of art. But it has a life of its own. So it's very difficult unless we have a kind of body of people who can explain to us what exactly will its repercussions be on our lives. So I'm not the right person to answer this. I'm sort of still groping, So hopefully we'll have better answers in the future.
Salim, yeah, it's your turn. And for quick questions, please. Salim is a student in Sociology department at MANUU.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. My question is regarding to relevance of sociology subject, which said that he be a job creator, not a job seeker, and be a multi-skilled person. Then you can survive in this industrial society. So my question is, while studying sociology, I realized that sociology is a kind of activism. So where it is not good for government, it is not good for capitalist society, mostly who produce jobs to the society. So my question is regarded what about those people who are marginalized in our society in the term of first generation learner and in term of class, caste, region, language, gender. So how it will be good, how it is relevant for these peoples, this subject?
A very good question. I think our relevance is at two levels. One level is skills, direct skills. So, for example, even a market, you have financial risk assessment. You also have social risk assessment, private firms. So, supposing a Japanese firm wants to invest in India, they will want to have an idea of social assessment. Now, so that we need skills. The problem that we are having with unemployment is that very often we don't teach our students skills. They have to learn how to read, write, count, basic skills, which should be not just about sociology, any subject. Skills are important, analyze, but along with skills and understanding. And I think people who come from marginalized section benefit from it enormously. They learn the skills, they learn to think, they learn to speak for themselves. They become visible actors. They speak for themselves. I mean, that is a kind of empowering and assertive identity, as citizens of society. So I don't think at all it's an elite enterprise. It is an enterprise if done properly. If it is done in routine way, तो फिर कोई भी फायदा नहीं हो.
Yeah. I think we have reached to the time. Yeah, there is one last maybe question. Professor T. Jogdandi is there online. Thank you, sir, being there. Please go ahead. Sir, you can unmute and raise your comments. Professor Pahla Jogdan. Okay. Meanwhile, there is one important.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Very nice to see you.
At least. Maitrayee, nice. Your lecture was very nice, very interesting.
Yeah.
However, I have 2-3 questions.
Yeah, tell me.
Now, there is a misunderstanding in the minds of the people that sociology is very, very easy subject. And it is based on some sort of common sense knowledge and all that. And what they teach is family, marriage, kinship, caste, and all that. So this kind of understanding we have to address in a proper way by our doing the research and all that. And I was in the university, regional university, working for 30 years, 3 decades. When it comes to allocation of funds and grants and all that, for us and for the university structure, economics is important, not the sociology. So, so these kind of questions are there in the especially in the regional university setup. So as a result, sociology, is relegated to the last kind of, the ladder or the layers in the university structure. And I have guided a couple of students there, in the research, PhD and MPhil. When students have the theory, examiner is asking where is the data. And when students are the data, the same examiner asking, where is the theory. I mean, this kind of understanding, is there among us also. So how to address this kind of the problems that senior sociologists, I mean, I have seen some senior sociologists asking this kind of questions when they come for the PhD viva hours.
This
Yeah, that's it. That's
is
it.
a very tough question. You know it, I know it. The only thing I think the young people can bring the change. This has the problem of downgrading the discipline has been very intense. Partly it is two levels of problem. One, जैसे कि बहुत आसान है, और if you try to make it a little more serious, they'll say ये तो बहुत hi-fi है. तो ये बीच में कैसे करें? That it is something which is accessible, समझ सकते हैं, but it is not like Maggie 2 minute. वही फर्क है ना कि if you take a long time to cook, it takes time. So the idea that this sociological understanding को भी पढ़ाने का time नहीं मिल रहा with this whole जो deadline है, आधे time तो people are filling up forms. Whenever I call a student, they say, "Ma'am, NAC आया, NAC गया." आधे time you're filling up documents. So पढ़ाने का time बहुत मुश्किल हो गया. I think we'll have to discuss this, talk about it for basically awareness. और तो कोई तरीका है नहीं.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. How are you? All are good?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
There is one important question as a whole, ma'am, from southern India. Dr. Yasir is writing the chat box that why the popularity of sociology as a subject is missing in southern states in comparison to most of the states of North, East, and Western India. So can ISS do something about it by working on, and why these states are not starting these courses? Perhaps this is also a question which I feel personally many of the teachers across the state in southern India raises at times. So maybe
there's been some interesting work done by people. I think you would know that at one point Madras University, which has a very old history of Department of Sociology, they changed its name to Department of Corporate Sociology. And that essay by one Madhu Sharin, who's an old student of mine, is there in the book Sociology in India. So when you talk in the South, there's a great emphasis on technology and management. And social upward mobility is usually thought of as technology and management. So people would feel that it's because, there's not much point in investment. Interestingly, sociology has a very, very close link with liberal studies. And a lot of private universities now talk about liberal studies. And I think we need to push that point कि अगर आपको sociology नहीं आता, आपका ना management आ सकता, ना आपको important policy making. We have to, in a certain sense, reinvent of how we should present ourselves. But you all have to help me. We even have very much less members from the down south in the Indian Sociological Society, apart from the departments. There has to be more conferences and discussions like what you are organizing at MANUU. Every department should be having this idea of why sociology. What is the link of sociology and democracy, sociology and justice, sociological perspective and social problems? Iska kya connection hai? Unless we do that, it's not going to work. Because yes, there has been a kind of very heavy dominance of management and technology down south, as compared, which is good for development in a certain narrower sense of the term, but it has to be accompanied by sociology.
This is a larger question and that remains important, and it's true about आपने जो कहा that southern states में management, science and technology are very, very powerful and very important. वो हम लोग अपनी यूनिवर्सिटी में भी देखते हैं कि the large number of crowd comes for sciences and computer sciences largely. A lot many questions are there, but then we should conclude at a time, so we thought to wind up in an hour. Our students are there, they have questions, maybe they are hesitant to come online, but they look forward to meet you offline sometime in MANUU. Manu, as you said, you have not been there, and it is our wish that you visit at once. In
I'm really
2024,
looking
I hope
forward
that
when
you
I'm a
visit.
free bird and I can come after 25. Yeah.
I am very happy, and all of our colleagues from the School of Arts and Social Sciences, they were sitting in this hall. In fact, दूसरे departments से, we are almost 10 departments in social sciences at MANUU. उस पूरे department के PhD students इस hall में बैठ के आपको सुन रहे थे. They were very happy. I could see their faces. They were finding those questions being raised by others who are addressing their queries actually. And I hope that those kind of ideas which you gave, that why Indian sociology is relevant today, will really make some sense. In fact, हम सब यही सवाल अपने क्लासरूम में बात करते हैं, but how do you put those things properly is more important. So when somebody like you addresses, students को automatically लगता है कि yes, ये पढ़ना जरूरी है. Peter Berger, when you say about it, when you are raising pandemic के बाद जो सारे concerns आए हैं, sociology के students को address करना है. In fact, I'm really very fascinated with the idea that sociology वहीं grow करती है या क्या है जहाँ democracy मजबूत है. और दैट इज रियली ट्रू. हमारे कुछ कोलिग्स भी ये कहते हैं कि मिडिल ईस्ट में सोशियोलॉजी क्यों नहीं आया, चाइनीज में और दूसरे कंट्रीज में अपॉर्चुनिटीज हमें नहीं दिखती है. द रीजन इज दैट व्हाट यू सेड, दैट democratic space is very important, because to do field work, to do a lot of thinking, you need a space. So all these are very important for all of us. मैम बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सोशियोलॉजी डिपार्टमेंट मौलाना आजाद नेशनल यूनिवर्सिटी की तरफ से, पूरे यूनिवर्सिटी की तरफ से, हमारे वाइस चांसलर की तरफ से, जिन्होंने
To convey my regards to the Vice Chancellor and all the others whom I may not know by name.
Yes, and I thank you so much. And I just hand over this because this is run by our research colloquium group. So I hand over this to Faisal.
थैंक यू सर. अब हमारा ये प्रोग्राम अपने आखिरी मरहले की तरफ चल रहा है, और इसलिए मैं अब अपने कोलिग मुबश्शिर फारूकी से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ कि वो वर्ड ऑफ थिंग्स के लिए आए. मुबश्शिर फारूकी.
So a very good afternoon to this esteemed guest and all the participants. I, Muhammad Bashiruddin Farooqi, considers this as an honor to present vote of thanks for this lecture. I want to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to Professor Maitrayee Chaudhuri for accepting our invitation and delivering a very profound and insightful lecture on relevance of sociology in India today. She highlighted how sociology emerged at a moment of crisis, and especially the mentioning at the time of COVID pandemic, how the sociological disciplines helps to different professions of the life for better understanding of the world. Thank you very much, ma'am. आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया अपनी मसरूफियत में से वक्त फारिग करने और हमारी रहनुमाई के लिए.
Thank you.
A very special thank to Dr. K.M. Ziyauddin, Head Department of Sociology, for encouraging and leading us for this platform and the scholar space. इस बात का जिक्र करना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि sir has not only provided all the possible supports to our research scholars for organizing this, but he is very actively involved in different stages for organizing this program. So very special thank to Dr. Ziyauddin. I also want to thank all the participants, faculties, research scholars, and students who have attended from across the country through online mode. I also want to thank the participants who are present here in the committee room, the faculties, Professor Ehtesham, Saheed sir, Hilal sir, and also Professor P.H. Mohammed have joined through online mode. A very special thanks to all of them. आखिर में बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया मेरे तमाम साथियों का, स्कॉलर स्पेस के उन तमाम साथियों का जिन्होंने इस प्रोग्राम को ऑर्गेनाइज करने में मेहनत और कोशिश की. आसिम, फाजिल, अल्ताफ, उसामा, फैसल, आप तमाम लोगों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. At last, I request all the participants to please give your valuable suggestions through feedback form. We have put the link of the feedback form in the chat box. Your suggestions are highly appreciated and will help us to आगे इसको प्रोग्राम को बेहतर बनाने के लिए हमारी मदद करेंगे. There is a separate link for those who wants e-certificate for participation. So please consider that there are two links. One is for the feedback form and another is for the certificate purpose. At last, I request you to please follow Scholars Space India channel for further updates, and your response and participation is highly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
थैंक यू मुबश्शिर, आपने मेरा नाम आसान कर दिया है. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आप सबका. आपने हमारे साथ इस ऑनलाइन और ऑफलाइन इस प्रोग्राम में आपने शिरकत की. जिस तरह से मुबश्शिर मेरे कोलीग ने बताया कि ये प्रोग्राम मुसलसल रिसर्च कोलोकियम डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ सोशियोलॉजी मंथली ऑर्गेनाइज कराता रहेगा, और मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ सोशियोलॉजी मानू ये उम्मीद करता है कि आप आगे भी हमारे साथ इसी तरह से हमारे साथ ज्वाइन करते रहेंगे. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. स्टे.
Thank you.
Very good. Chalo, Azad. Very good.